Echo Dad would like to talk.
If you're anything like me, you like listening to podcasts, whether that's on the go, in the gym, on holiday, or on your smart speaker. There's plenty to choose from. But what are the best podcasts to listen to if you're interested in voice? Today, I'm going to look at my top 10. Before I begin, all of these podcasts I will put a link to in the description down below so you can go find them yourself after you've watched this video. So at number 10, the Voice Tech Podcast with Carl Robinson. A great podcast that keeps you up to date with the news, with some great interviews from people prominent within the voice community. Also worth noting, he has a newsletter that comes out every Tuesday called Voice Chops Tuesday, which gives you a rundown of all the latest news with voice and some great articles about voice. At number 9, Voice in Education by Julie Daniel Davis. A lot of this channel is about understanding voice experiences for kids and how kids react. And a big part of a kid's life is education. And what Julie does in her podcast, which are about 5 to 10 minutes long, is evaluates how voice has affected education. And there's some really good interviews with some really good people that put voice into classrooms. It's got some really interesting insights on how our children are going to be interacting with voice assistants in their school lives as we look for the future. It's one that's well worth a listen. Number 8, This Week in Voice by Bradley Metrock. This Week in Voice was the first podcast in the Voiced First FM network. It goes back a couple of years and gives a really good overview of what's going on in voice at the moment, with some really good interviews with some amazing people from across the spectrum of the voice community. This Week in Voice kicked off the Voiced First FM network, which now boasts 11 podcasts in the group, each lasting between 45 minutes and an hour, and they talk about a range of what's happening in voice and get the best of the best guests on. Whether you're just interested in voice or whether you're a developer. If you don't find what you're looking for in This Week in Voice, somewhere in the Voice First FM network, you'll find it. Number 7, Alexa in Canada from Terry Fisher. This is another one in the Voice First FM network, and although it says Alexa in Canada, don't be put off by that. Dr. Fish has some great guests on with some really interesting topics and has some great insights. It's well worth a listen. Number 6, Voiciety. Now this is the youngest podcast on the list, but don't let that put you off. Before becoming a podcast, Voiciety, run by Seth, was a website dedicated to rating Alexa skills. So although Voiciety has changed direction and is now moving into the podcast game, Seth has got some great connections, so it promises to be a really interesting podcast moving forward. Design for Voice. Design for Voice is hosted by a guy called Jeremy, who's a Google developer expert for Google Assistant. This podcast gives some great design tips and design guide how to create great voice experiences. As an aside, what I would say if you're interested in development and you do get a chance to go to one of Google's design workshops, take it. They have a really unique approach to how to design for voice. They're great fun and take you out of your comfort zone. Number 4, the VoiceBot Podcast, hosted by Brett Kinsella. Number 4, the VoiceBot Podcast, hosted by Brett Kinsella. Brett is one of the top dogs in voice. He is the go-to guy and he's the guy where we all get our stats from. If you're interested in voice technology, you've probably come across him somewhere. VoiceBot.ai is a great website and a great resource with loads of statistics on how voice is used and some great articles about what's going on in the voice world. If nothing else, it's worth going to listen to one of his most recent podcasts, Top Voice News for the first half of 2019, with, as you'd expect, the top voice news from the first half of 2019. We're into our top 3, and I'm staying close to home for these, they're all Brits. At number 3, VUX World from Kane Sims. It's another one in the Voiced FM network, but you will not find someone as enthusiastic about voice as Kane. VUX World is my personal favourite in the Voice FM network. He gets some amazing guests, and he has a really unique way of looking at things. And as I said, he's very enthusiastic and conveys it at every turn and in every conversation. Number 2, the Voice for Voice podcast from Geraint John. Now, I've been a bit harsh here, it's not just Geraint, it's Will as well. The dynamic between the two of them is awesome, they've got great chemistry. Now in this podcast, they talk about what's going on in the news, they review skills, and they interview people. They cover it all. They're also a great example of doing social media right, as you'll regularly find them streaming on Instagram as well. And finally, number 1, and probably my favourite podcast, the Dot to Dot podcast from Robin Christopherson. Now, the Dot to Dot podcast is only 5 minutes long, but a new one is released every day, including Christmas Day. Now, what the Dot to Dot podcast does is it reviews skills. Simple as that. Every day, Robin takes a look at a new skill and tests it, and it gives a great overview of how a skill works. At the time of filming this, he's up to 896 reviews. By the time this is released, it'll be well over 900. What's really interesting is Robin is a champion for accessibility within technology, and is himself blind. It adds an extra dimension to the testing. So that's my top 10. Have you got any other podcasts you think are worth listening to? Let me know in the comments section down below. As I said at the beginning, I'll put links to all these podcasts in the description. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Echo Dad to hear all the reviews that me and the kids have got, along with other videos similar to this. But for now, the future's here. Go live it.